This is the ESPN Aussie Hoops Hour podcast. Kane, Pitman and Olgun Uluc coming back to you for one last Paris Olympics podcast, and it comes on a good day for the Opals. They do claim bronze on the last day of the Olympics, and it was a game, Olgun, that was fitting of everything that we've seen from this Opals team over the last 3 weeks here in France. There were times in this game where they were under pressure. There were times in this game where you thought that they were going to run away with it, but ultimately it came down to the final few possessions, and it almost felt fitting, even if maybe it wasn't great for the stress levels of everyone watching at home in the perfect evening time slot. But the bronze medal, first medal since 2012, this is a significant achievement, and I think a group of girls that absolutely deserve all the praise because they went through it over the last few weeks.
So I don't know about you, but I thought this was one of the best basketball games that I've seen this Olympics, male or female. I thought the shot making on both sides was really cool to watch. Different defensive adjustments, big plays down the stretch from both teams. There was a game of runs. It looked like one team was about to stretch the lead out to double figures, and the other would come back and hit a bunch of shots. Just the talent on both sides, whether it was Ezi Magbegor, who we'll speak about a lot, or Alana Smith, or on the other side, it was Mieseman or Van Loo, just hitting tough shot after tough shot. This was an awesome back and forth. The Opals walk away with a medal. There is a really awesome view of what the future of this program is. It is good that the older generation of this team that have more than likely played their last Olympics get to end on a high note. Lauren Jackson goes 5 for 5 in medals in all of her Olympics. So much to take out of this game, but I think at the top is Ezi Magbegor.
You're exactly right. And we've wondered right throughout this Olympic Games, she's had good moments, but we also know that now it feels like Magbegor is a veteran of this team, that she came in as the best player on the roster. That's what you figured. You figured that she was going to be a two-way threat, and it's been patchy along the way. But not today. This is when you look at the stat line and what the Ezi was able to rattle off. The 30 points, yes, that is outrageous. But then you add the 13 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks as well. This is one of the all-time lines. And when you factor in that it took a while to get here in terms of those roller coaster struggles that I mentioned, it was unbelievable because in the stretch of this game, in the fourth quarter, you got contributions from other players, big shots, free throws. We'll get into that. But if you looked at this game through 3 quarters, if it wasn't for Ezi, who already had 26 points, the Opals would have been down by 20 plus points, I feel. She was blocking shots. She wasn't just blocking shots. She was altering the opponent's shots. They didn't want to go anywhere near her. And then they had absolutely no hope of stopping her, whether she was in the post, whether she was rolling to the basket. She was utterly dominant. And maybe it's best to save the best to last, but it wasn't lost on me that exact 30 points, that's what Lauren Jackson scored in the bronze medal game 2 years ago. And it's almost fitting because we do believe that Ezi, along with a bunch of other names, is going to be the star of this program for the next decade still.
So, all right. So there are a few different sort of directions of symbolism where you can go down with this Ezi Magbegor performance. The LJ one, the similarities make sense. 30 points in a closeout game to win a bronze medal at a major tournament is awesome. There is the idea of her being now this is the passing of the torch, right? You can point to that as well with LJ watching from the bench with some of the older girls on, but it was Ezi Magbegor who really stepped up. It could also be someone like Magbegor in her position replacing ostensibly someone like Liz Cambage, who was the sort of crux of the cultural issues in Tokyo that made that tournament for the Opals really not one that was palatable. And then they obviously rebounded in a big way, both culturally and on the court. And part of the on-court rebound was making sure to empower someone like Magbegor. And they've done that to the point where she had this performance. Now, obviously she was up and down to start this tournament. I think defensively, she was largely solid all tournament. It was the same thing tonight. It was, like you said, it was blocks, it was deflections, it was altering shots. She did a really, really good job. And then the offensive end, this team just did a really good job of putting Magbegor in situations where I think she was most comfortable. It was her attacking downhill, off rolls, in transition. There was some stuff in the post, but I think the idea of using her athleticism and her size and her length and just putting heat on the rim, I think that's something that was really, really important. And then she did find that touch around the rim too. But overall, an awesome performance. And I don't know which one of those sort of symbolic images is the one that sort of touches your heart the most. But I like the idea of it being a mixture of a turning of the page of the old generation into the new one, and also finally putting the Cambage stuff aside, which I think they've done. They did pretty quickly, and they've done in a really effective way, and really moving forward with a really impressive talent.
Yeah, all makes sense. I'd prefer personally not to even bring up Cambage, so I won't even go down that path.
Sure.
But you know, as I said, your point makes sense. Let's never talk about that again. Let's move forward because they've got another bronze medal, and I think for Ezi, I was very happy for her as well because she's already getting the accolades in the WNBA. I mean, that's the only thing I will say about this being the coming of age or this being the turning of the page. She's already that girl. It was just that there were situations for this Opals team that didn't allow her to dominate a game as well. So sure, she could have made some shots that she would normally make, no question. But I think that it should be no surprise that in the game where the Opals finally take care of the ball and they only have 11 turnovers to 24 assists as a team, that she was able to thrive because a lot of those baskets came in the half court. We know that she can get out in transition and dominate because she's an athletic freak. But when you get in the half court and you can actually run offense, we saw that, okay, now everyone's a little more comfortable. It's early in the offense, so it's not late in the shot clock. So being able to establish her early and get the confidence going was great because she had 6 points, 3 rebounds through the first quarter, and she played about 7 minutes of that first quarter. And the game was on. It was a great contest, but it was like, wait a second. We haven't seen a extended stretch like that of two-way basketball, so the signs were good. And I do think that you also give credit to the Opals, give credit to Sandy Brondello that on the first possession to second possession, Ezi was the player that they went through because they probably understood if you were talking about upside for this team, it was right there in front of you. And she delivered. Now, did I expect a 30-point, 13-rebound game? Maybe not. But we do know that she has that in her.
The thing that stood out to me was, I think it was a patch in the third quarter where it was the non-Ezi minutes. And I thought the Opals really struggled. I thought things got a little bit stagnant. I thought defensively, I didn't think they were as connected. The Opals were a plus 12 in Ezi's minutes, right? And I think that outside of 30 points on 17 shots and the fill in the stat sheet the way she did, I think that was a really good indication of her effectiveness in this game. When it comes to big moments in this game, there are so many that stand out to me, whether it was the buzzer beaters to end each of the first 2 quarters, which sort of halted some Belgian momentum, whether it was, man, there were so many in the fourth quarter. There was a Tess Madgen 3 that was huge. There was an Alana Smith and 1. There was an Alana Smith block. There was the Steph Talbot block. There was a Magbegor block. And then I think a steal early in the fourth quarter, which I think helped the Opals too. Which of those? Again, I don't want you to rank them all.
Yeah.
Which one sort of like feels like it maybe shifted the game in the Opals' favor the most?
Well, it was interesting because you know this, and I know you do a similar thing. But when I'm at the game, I'll have 4 or 5 pages of notes, and there will be different points in the game that I look or different interactions that I see or some sort of emotional moment. And I'll be like, okay, that can be the crux of what I'm going to write about, or that can be the crux of the story of the game. And there was so many throughout, but the one that I ended up circling, we know that Ezi dominated. The one I ended up circling was Alana Smith and 1 with 4:08 on the clock. She knocks down the free throw. The Opals now lead 76-69. And you knew that maybe there was going to be one more twist in the tail, but that felt like the moment that, okay, the Opals have regained control. They were down 4 early in the quarter. Smith has been one of the most consistent players on this team, one of the more dominant players in this team on a night-to-night basis that they can run the offense through. And then I also think that it felt good seeing Alana Smith have that moment because she wasn't on the team 2 years ago in the World Cup. She's had a bunch of injury concerns, but it also felt like the Opals, whether it's Sandy, whether it's the program, it felt like she was on the outer. And I think for a lot of people, that didn't really make sense. She had some challenging times in the WNBA, but then, going to Chicago, now Minnesota, getting back in the team, you actually look at this tournament and you think, well, they couldn't have done this without her. And you can't really wrap your head around the fact that she wasn't there in previous times. So the combination of the moment, along with the journey, that's the one that I had circled. I thought it was really a really cool way to put a bow on a massive tournament for her.
I think, and I agree with the back part of that too, which is she's been the one who's been the most consistent in carrying the Opals over this entire tournament. And there was a question even going into this. Obviously, she was on the team, but there was a question on whether Sandy Brondello would even start her. And when in hindsight, you look back and it was an obvious no-brainer, right? The Smith Magbegor front court is elite, and it should be for hopefully the next Olympics and the next World Cup as well. But yeah, I thought she was huge. Obviously, that Steph Talbot block is one that came at that really pivotal moment, and it stopped Belgium from getting what I think was going to be a tying 3, and that ultimately got the Opals the win. We've spoken about them all tournament, but another shout out to not just Tess Madgen, who came in and hit a big shot and did just a good job of being that sort of veteran point guard and calming things. But also Kayla George. There was a point in the first quarter where she came in. It looked like Belgium was maybe going to go on a run, and she came and she hit a deep 2, and it was like, of course you're going to hit this shot at a really big moment and stop some momentum. And these are just girls who are just not phased, right? And then Sammy Whitcomb, who struggled shooting in the first half, but hit some of her shots in the third and fourth quarter, and I think really helped extend that Opals lead. Just a really good input from everybody. And Izzy Borlase, who was solid at the end of that USA game, I thought was really solid at the start of this game against Belgium. And again, you can just see what she's going to be. You can see the intent she plays with. You can see there's some flow, and she's this dynamic player. You can see Jade Melbourne, Izzy Borlase, Ezi Magbegor, just the three of them, when it comes to how young they are and the different things they can do on the court, you have a core of what this Opals team is. And it was cool that we got to see that here as they eventually move forward and hopefully have multiple Olympics to come.
Yeah, you mentioned the 2 buzzer beaters in this game. So one at the end of the first, one at the halftime. The first one was Borlase. The second one was Whitcomb. Both of those gave the Opals a 1-point lead at the end of those quarters, but also the final margin is 4 points. So those extra 6 points, felt like they might have been pivotal. And I think that was the margins in this game. So I agree. Whitcomb was huge. Talbot and the toughness of that performance, I think, deserves a story of its own, because she plays 27 minutes in this game, came off the bench. And I think part of that was the reliability you knew that you could get from Madgen. And I believe, based on what I understand and talking to everyone, they weren't even sure whether Talbot was going to play at all. They end up going +7 in her minutes on the floor. You mentioned the big block, and there's a great photo that I see getting around of that defensive effort. But she was also on the floor 5 or 6 times throughout this game. She was very visibly hobbling around. Like, she was not okay. And we just were at a pub, and I was very, very tempted to indulge. And there was plenty of offers for champagne and beer, but I decided to wait for
Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. You indulged.
Oh, I would have loved to. I decided to wait another 2 hours. I got some stuff to write, and then I can tell you what I'm going to indulge, because it is the last night here. It's a long 3 weeks. But Steph Talbot was getting around in some variation of a boot. So 27 minutes, that foot is not in great condition. And to be able to tough it out and play at a position that, as we continue to discuss, was already depleted from losing Beck Allen before the tournament started. We know that she's tough, and everyone that's played alongside her will tell you that. But I think that there is a level to that we might also never really know how much she was playing through over the last few weeks. And I don't think that means you escape the criticism. She's so good for this team that at times we did. The turnovers were bad. The shot selection wasn't great. But she also had moments throughout in this game where she was able to help steady this team. And today was just gutting it out. And the fact that she was an impactful player says a lot about who she is.
And especially with the way that she plays too, right? I think the big value that she brings is her physicality on both ends of the floor. It's her ability to put her head down and get 2 feet in the paint, or whether it's to be versatile defensively. She did a bit of everything, and she needs her athleticism. She needs her body to be able to do that stuff. She's not just standing in the corner hitting spot up threes or anything. She did hit a big 3 in this one from the corner, but she came up and made big play after big play. Really, really impressive from her. And again, it was against a Belgian team that has a ton of weapons. Whether it was Van Loo or Mieseman, it seemed like they had an option to score every time down the floor. And I think Talbot's ability to be switchy, because this Belgian team did have good shooters, and they do have good bigs. So this was, again, I can't stress how impressive a win this is. And again, it was honestly maybe the best game of basketball that I've seen at the Olympics so far. Maybe the Steph heroics is the moment that'll stand out the most, and things like that. But man, this was a really good game of basketball. And I want to talk about LJ for a little bit, just because this is more than likely her last Olympics. She's retired many times before, but we're assuming that this is the last time that she'll put on this Opals jersey. She's gone to 5 Olympics, 5 medals, 3 silver, 2 bronze. She's won a bunch of silver medals at World Cups, won a gold medal at a World Cup. Didn't play in this one, but I don't know. You could still sense that. You could sense how much she was obviously in the game, but you can also sense how much the girls did want to do it for her, right? She's someone who they have obviously immense respect for on and off the court. So I think you could still feel her out there, even though she didn't get any minutes.
Yeah, I just saw the slightest hint that there were some suggestions that why is she there? That is the biggest load of garbage that could ever get thrown out there. Because if you are the 12th, if you're the 12th person on the roster, we've discussed this before, those people on any given team, there is no one that you could replace Lauren Jackson with that could bring the same level of, as you pointed to, whether it's respect within the group, whether it's the legendary status, whether it's the understanding of every single situation a team can possibly go through. And when they were rocked after the first Nigeria game, LJ was the one that said, I've never seen that before. It was embarrassing. We need to get better, but we need to figure it out tomorrow morning. And everything that I understand is that the next morning, they've got so many great leaders, but LJ was the one that was just like, all right, let's sharpen up. It's win or go home essentially from here on out. And so I don't personally care that she didn't play a minute tonight. I don't care that it wasn't a 30-point epic performance like it was in Sydney, because we already got that moment. We saw in stretches during the qualifiers. We saw in various stretches over the last few years that she still could do it. For this tournament, it didn't really make sense. And it didn't really make sense in the matchups they were in. And they tried. They gave her a couple of runs. And I respect the fact that the team and everyone was like, okay, well, this isn't it. You're still so valuable to us. And she was a massive part of this team being able to get to the Olympics and win a bronze medal. So this is nothing but the addition to the legendary resume. And I would have to say that, forget the box score, she had a massive impact on this team being able to achieve getting back on the podium.
Yeah, we've seen this across teams, men's, women's, different levels. Having a third big is important, right? And there was every chance that she could have been the second big on this roster as well. Tolo, I think, is up and down. Lauren Jackson was up and down. Again, there is value in her positionally, putting aside what she is from a pure, I'll call it a vibes standpoint. Just someone who has been there before and can help the entire mentality and emotional sort of integrity of this group, I'll say. But look, and she's also the obvious example of the passing of the torch, which obviously we spoke about with the Boomers. We can speak about it here as well, where this is a generation of Opals that will now move aside, and it's great that they've got to do that on a winning note. And the signs of what this Opals team will be in the future looks really, really, really good. From Jade Melbourne, who it is great that she had her moment in these Olympics. She also had her warts as well. Same with Magbegor. She had obviously this giant moment, but she had her ups and downs. These are all little bouts of adversity, however big or small, that they will use to then learn from and be bigger and better for the next Olympics. And so while bronze is a great outcome, this is a program that has high expectations. And so I don't want to hear rose gold thrown around. Rose gold is reserved for a program that had been chasing it and had never achieved it. And that's the pinnacle of what they've done so far. For this team, I think bronze should be right around the floor of this team. That's what the expectation is. And I think that's a good thing. And based on the experience that these young girls have just had and how talented they are, I think bronze is the floor for this group moving forward.
Well, the pushback on that is that what is this group? We don't really know, because who were the impactful players right throughout this? You had Tess Madgen with the iconic game against France from a leadership point of view. Against Canada, they might not get out of the hole against Canada if it wasn't for Kayla George and Tolo. Wickham led the team in scoring and continually hit big shots for this team. You can keep going down the list. So that's my pushback with that, is that we don't know what the next version is. So I don't think with these programs the way they go, and just because the Opals have won more medals in the past, I don't think that we get to judge every single Olympics on the same path, because the other thing that we need to say is the women's game is getting better as well. And yes, this team came in and they wanted to win a medal, but don't overlook how difficult this was to get here to bronze. And also don't take for granted that they're going to be there in 2 years at the World Cup or 4 years at the Olympics, because we have no idea what that squad is going to look like. But the reality is by LA, half the squad is going to be turned over, maybe more. So that's why I don't think you just say, well, it's the floor. I agree with you. They have high expectations, but it's not that easy. It's going to get more difficult. They're going to be a completely different team. And that's why I don't think you look over it. And I'm not saying you are, but for anyone out there, it's not just, the Opals won another bronze. It's been 12 years since they won a medal. And it was a long road to get here with a lot of stuff that went on in the last decade.
Yeah, and I guess it's weird. Tokyo is sort of a moment in time with the Opals that you just put to the wayside a little bit. You sort of ignore it, right? But they won a bronze at the World Cup two years ago, right? So they have done this. I just think the talent level, and again, I agree that it might take some teething, right? There will be some patience, and we've said this about the Boomers as well, where I think there's a trust in the talent and that it will be there. How long it takes may be the question, but I do think that the Opals team does have a unique blend of some of the young girls coming up, whether it's Magbegor or Melbourne or Borlase or Georgia Amor or anyone coming up. And then also there are those sort of transitional pieces. So like Alana Smith is 27, right? She should be there at the next World Cup and the next Olympics and potentially the two after that too. There is Steph Talbot is not up there in age in the same way that some of the others are. So there are some of these transitional pieces that I think that can continue to grow with the young talent in the sense that I don't know if that's there. That's there for the Boomers too. Honestly, there's hope for both of these programs going forward. Thinking about it, we'll probably have to think a bit more deeply about it and more deeply about who the opposition will be. But in a vacuum, looking at these teams, there is a ton of hope going forward, and I don't think it's false hope. I don't think it's misguided. I think it's very legitimate, and it depends how much you value this young talent and how quickly you think they're going to reach their potential.
No, I agree. I think there is a significant promise because I think that the youth coming through to play at that level, whether it's NBA or WNBA, continues to get better. And I don't really see any way that that's going to slow down for Australia. But you can't just assume that it's going to happen, because I do think, and I think we've tried to, bring that to the table, but we've spent a lot of time talking about this Boomers group. And I do think, based on what you see and some of the reactions, I think there's been a removal of realism about where this team was at and where the rest of the world is at. You don't just automatically get to say, well, this is the most NBA talent we've ever had. This is the best team the country's ever had, and blindly expect that means that you get a medal, because what you're not looking at is the fact that every single other country has got equally improved or perhaps more improved, and perhaps the top end talent is better. So that's my point, is that when the Australia moves up on a scale, the rest of the world, you need to make sure that you're at least on par or not, if not better, because otherwise you're not going to find yourself in those medal situations again. And I do think in the lead up to the Boomers, I think there was a lack of acknowledgement that, holy crap, look who they're playing, look what they're up against. And getting a medal would not just be the continuation of the last Olympics. It would be an incredible step up based on who you're playing. And I think, for the Opals, that's going to be the same thing. And when you have teething problems and you're bringing in 20-year-olds, 22, 23-year-olds that don't have the backup of Kayla George and Sammy Wickham and Tolo and all these players that were so important, that's a different ballgame, because they wouldn't have won a bunch of those games if it wasn't for those veterans here. And that's okay. That's what they're there for. But you just need to figure out who that is in 4 years' time.
You know what? I'm probably understating the difficulty of being in the midst of a transition or a transitional phase. And I think both teams were in a version of that. I think the Opals were probably better prepared to handle a tournament like the Olympics, where the margin of error is so slim. And so having the Kayla Georges and Tess Magins and Steph Talbots and whatever of the world were good enough to help you get over those small margins. With the Boomers, they didn't quite have those pieces, but I think we can agree that the ceilings of both of these teams over the next, let's say, 3 Olympics is incredibly high. And it's all about whether or not they can keep up with some of those other nations and have those pieces to overcome those small margins.
Can I just say, this is off topic here, but it comes on the back of yesterday, seeing the men and the Serbians out on the town and just having a really great day. I don't really know what the answer is to this. Like, I don't know how you change it, But we were just, as I said, we're at a local establishment with the families and supporters and friends, and they're all enjoying themselves. But there was a part of, well, we better slow down because we're going to go to do the podium. We're going to go back in the arena and collect our medals. And part of me is like, I know that you have to get all three teams out there. Is there any way we can just give the girls their medals and then just they don't have to go back in the arena? I don't even know if they would agree with that. But do we really care that much about seeing Team USA and France up there with their gold and silver and getting a photo with the girls? Or do we just want the girls to get their bronze medal and head out on the town and do whatever the hell they want to do tonight because they've got an Olympic medal? I don't know. I feel like it's a shame that you have to all of a sudden ship back into the arena and stop the celebrations. But there might be many Olympic medalists out there that are just like, Kane, shut the hell up. It's just part of the process.
So I don't know if you've noticed it there. I'm sure you have. The sort of the tradition that the Olympics is steeped in. They are sort of they're unyielding when it comes to breaking traditions, etc. And so if
coverage rules and we can let's continue, carry on.
We saw zero. We barely saw highlights from the group stages, right? Because it was all the way in Lille, and I don't know if the broadcasters cared about posting anything. We saw no interviews because you can't take photos. I don't know what would happen to you if you took a photo in that arena, Kane. But
never hear from me again.
you would be swooped up by.
I'd be in AOC jail.
This is correct. So the Olympics is steeped in tradition, and presumably part of that tradition is having a podium that has the three. The top three contestants, and so that would be the Opals in this case. So I get it from that point. I'm not justifying it. I'm sort of reasoning out loud.
You know what I'm saying? Like as I said that, I'm like, maybe this sounds ridiculous. What I'm saying, they probably want their podium opportunity as well. But I'm just seeing the families take photos and they're celebrating, they're popping champagne bottles, and it's like, look, they got their credential around their neck. I'm like, can't we get these girls their bronze medal? I don't know.
And they would have just finished a game. You think you finish a game. Like big exhale, tournament's done. We got to end this on a high note. We get to go home and celebrate or go to sleep or whatever. It's not you have to come in for some ceremonial stuff, just for the pageantry of it. And again, I get it, but I don't know. It's sort of like you're in like this flow state, and then all of a sudden it's cut, and then you've got to come back in, and it's like I don't know if the moment means as much. Which I like. I like the way that the Serbians handled it, which is go get pissed and then come back and enjoy it, because at that point you're not going to remember it anyway.
Stand on the podium like a bunch of giggling schoolboys that they were. You're right, actually. That was beautiful vision, and I'm sure the girls will equally enjoy themselves in a couple of hours' time as we're recording this now, and they do collect their bronze medal. But overall, what a tournament. It feels like it's been a long road. And again, you talk about the ups and downs for this team, all the individual stories. There's going to be plenty more at espn.com.au. But yeah, don't overlook this, particularly when you consider the circumstances. And we had a discussion about a week into this where I was like, do you think it's strange that they keep on talking about the preparation and the WNBA and the fact they haven't been able to practice? But they also have the right to discuss that, because the majority of these girls are flying out tomorrow directly to their cities in the US, and they're playing games in about 3 days' time. I know Minnesota is playing Washington, so Jade Melbourne and Alana Smith will be lining up against each other before the week is over. And that's when you just sit back and say, it is ridiculous. And I know that you're not going to get the WNBA to pivot on their schedules and what goes down in major tournament seasons, but these women put their bodies through a hell of a lot. They were all banged up. They were all tired. They were all exhausted, and now they go straight back to play. So that's why I say all the praise you can give them, they deserve it, because they're warriors for what they're asked to put their bodies through.
Yeah, the preparation part of it was, I think, evident, which is why I think it was apt that they spoke about it. I remember JJ Redick said something on one of his pods about what it feels like to play in a playoff game. And he said it's like playing 2 games. And that's what these tournaments feel like. You know that you're playing like maybe 4 games in the entire thing. Hopefully you're playing up to 6 games. But every game probably feels like it's 2 or 3. So the way their bodies would be feeling would be as though they just played 20 games. And I don't think you can understate. Yes, there were 2-day breaks in between them, but you can't understate the sort of effort and energy it takes to be part of those games. And then it's not just that. Like, you do have the pressure of the entire country on your back. You have the pressure of everyone who came before you in that program to achieve success, because that is the standard of that program. So there's a lot that goes on mentally, physically for all these girls. And so, and think of the barrage of disappointment that they received after that Nigeria game too. That is a giant hill to overcome. So for them to do that, I think was really impressive. I think it's something that deserves a lot of praise. And again, this is the Australian women's national team walking away with a medal in back-to-back major tournaments. That is an incredible achievement. Again, if the men's team did that, that is the best it's ever achieved, right? And so for them to do that, I think this program that had fallen into a slight hole is clearly on the up and up, and I think all the signs look really cool moving forward.
Pretty damn good Olympics for Australia in general, I would say, but I also think it's fair to admit that the women did a lot of the heavy lifting, and they were able to pick up a bronze here in the basketball as well. So, hey, Ogs, shout out to you. The hours have been extreme for you, and we've knocked out must be 10 to 12 podcasts over the last few weeks. So hopefully everyone's enjoyed the content, but I've just enjoyed being able to spend some time with you. And I don't know when we're going to podcast next, but we know the NBL is not far away. The NBA will be following straight after that. So I would dare say it's not going to be too far away from us continuing this show. And I'm in Australia in a couple of weeks, so let's grab a coffee.
I'll see what my schedule says.
Yeah.
Nice. At the risk of sounding, at risk of just giving you praise, just because I feel obliged to. Much credit to you for the coverage throughout the games, the Olympic Games. From going to the games, doing your coverage for the website, to then doing your coverage for television, and then coming and being a part of this. It's very difficult to sort of pack in so many different platforms worth of coverage in like a 3-hour span post a game, and then even today where you're extremely warm in this Paris weather, and there is no aircon apparently in the place that you're staying right now. So again, I've had to do some of these all-nighters and like late podcasts, but you've done a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to traveling from game to game and getting the vibe check of these girls and guys. And so big credit to you. And I'm glad that we've been able to do this, that we've been able to get these done post every game. We didn't miss one. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, and that's why for those watching on YouTube, they're like, geez, there's a nice shine about that large forehead on Kane. Well, it's because I'm sweating like an animal. If I ever hear people talk about or give crap to the European heat wave, I'm telling you, the sun is no joke. I think it's like only 32, 33 outside, but it feels like it's 60. So it's stinking hot. I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to do some writing, Olgs, and then going to have some food and make up for lost time with a few beers. I think that's it. And fly back to the US tomorrow. It's just the way it goes.
Well, look, I'm excited to see you soon when you get back here. We'll get to some NBL preseason games, which will be fun. And again, we're recording this. You'll know the result by the time that you listen to this. But France is up on the US with 5 minutes to go in this fourth quarter of this gold medal game, 51-49. This is. As soon as we wrap up here, I'm watching this. I'm leaving you. I'm watching this.
Me too. Let's wrap it up. That'll do it. That's an Olympic coverage in the books. As I said, keep it on espn.com.au. Plenty more stories from the reaction. So many great stories to tap into from this Opals team. They win a bronze medal. But from the Opals or Boomers, it's been an absolute pleasure. We thank everyone for joining us along the ride. Kane, Pitman, Olgun, Uluc. We'll see you back on the ESPN Aussie Hoops Hour podcast very, very soon.